Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. After we took a peek at the upper bracket group in the last video, we will now continue with taking a look at my own group. And if you remember the last 4-player game that I've shown from this group, I was able to win that one. And with that, I have now a really great position in the standings. I am 8 points ahead of Eske, but have one less game finished, and I'm 9 points ahead of Majondor, who at this point is maybe the opponent with the best chances to overtake me. But in order to overtake me, Majondor might need to win the 3-player game that we will take a look at today. It's a 3-player game against Majondor and GerisNezus. If I should manage to win that 3-player game, I'm at 24 points, Eske can't overtake me, and even if Majondor would finish second, he would be at 12 points, I would win the tiebreaker against him. So if I win this 3-player game, I am actually already through to the next round, but if Majondor wins that one and I finish maybe last, he is again only 4 points behind me. So then it is again relatively close going into the 2-player game. So that will be quite an important game. I hope you're excited for it. And now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. Alright, before we are going to take a look at the game, there's one thing that I forgot to mention. If you are interested in seeing the second one of the 4-player games of the upper bracket group, then you should check out Peter's channel because he will upload a video to that game soon, I think the next day or few days, and then you can see how the group continues there, and then on my channel I will cover some of the 3-player games then of that group, so check out Peter's channel. First of all, if you want to see how he did in his World Championship group, and then of course also if you are interested in seeing how the upper bracket group continues. And yeah, first of all, as always, we will take a look at the leaders and wonders. We have some theater synergy in H3 with Marlene Dietrich, Chaplin, the Hollywood. There's also Bach in H2, so that's one line that you can get into. We have also some lab synergy with Bill Gates, Sid Meier, Marie Curie, Steve Jobs. There's no spaceflight, however. We have the internet, but no Pierre. In H2, we have Napoleon as a military action leader, we have James Watt in the railroad, we have James Cook and the Suez Canal, so some colonization payoff, we have Newton and Nobel, so even more maybe intensive to go into a science-heavy build and then maybe go for one of those lab leaders. We also have Darwin, who also can work well with labs. For the wonders, we have the railroad, the Suez Canal, and then some of the stronger ones are missing with Harvard College and Ocean Liner, but of course statue can be quite fine, and then Eiffel Tower and Louvre may be rather niche, but I mean, we have seen in the last 4-player game, maybe I should go for the Louvre more often if you can build it wonder on 2 bronze mines. Alright, then in H1 we have Himeji Castle and Great Wall, so the 2 strength wonders, the 2 science wonders as well, with Silk Road and Universitas. Forbidden City is there, but no St. Peter's Basilica, no Machu Picchu. We have Joan of Arc as a military action leader, Nostradamus, Genghis Khan, Barbarossa to help with the strength, Barbarossa, Eleanor and Isabella to maybe set up for a colonization game. We have Leonardo, but no Gutenberg. I'm playing in first position, and I at the end decided to go with Hippocrates here. It's probably just the most solid leader out of the bunch. Cleopatra can also be fine, but Library will very likely be taken away, and then I maybe can't get an ideal wonder together with her. So at the end, I feel like Hippocrates the better choice. I could also think about taking Hanging Gardens, maybe just taking the Rich Land, not committing to anything, but I think Hippocrates is a fine leader, and I was hoping that the library will be taken away guaranteed, but for example, if Majondor should take the library, I do think that taking Cleo plus Richland plus Hanging Gardens would be quite tempting for GerisNezus, and that would mean that I would get a Colossus, and the Colossus in a game with Suez Canal James Cook I think is quite a strong wonder to get, and so I felt like Hippocrates plus Colossus could be a fine combination. If both Colossus and library are taken away, I might be left with the Hanging Gardens, or I could make the decision to skip the HA Wonder, hoping to get Silk Road or Universitas or Forbidden City early on, but I was actually thinking that I have a decent chance to get a Colossus here, and with that I was fine with taking Hippocrates. So interested to see whether Majondor will indeed go for the library, or if he maybe goes for Cleo plus Richland, Cleo plus Hanging Gardens or something, but he's indeed just going for the library, and then I thought those 3 cards are just too tempting for GerisNezus. I think it's the correct choice for him to take those, and that means that I will be left with the Colossus, and that's also the wonder that I will go for at my turn. There is the Acropolis also available for 1 civil action as an alternative. But I think the Colossus, as said in the colonization game, is quite strong. And also, additionally, the only leader available for one civil action for Majondor will be Sun Tzu. And so it's likely that I will play against Sun Tzu, which makes the Colossus maybe even better. So I just felt like going for the Colossus is definitely the correct choice here. Then I draw the Knowledge of the Ancients in the colonization card, so I can start pushing at the next turn if I want to. Majondor indeed goes for Sun Tzu, will draw a lot of cards, but some of the events might not be ideal for him to seed, with me having the Colossus, but he draws that many that he can maybe still find some fine ones to put into the deck. Now it's GerisNezus' turn. I think I would play this turn a bit differently than he did. He takes the Engineering Genius for 2 civil actions, which I think is just quite a bit expensive, especially in last position. The first H1 cards will be available early. I think there will soon be very more efficient ways to spend your civil actions. And while he takes it away from me, I just get the iron now for 2 civil actions. Of course, if he doesn't take it, then maybe Majondor gets the iron for 2 and I get the Engineering Genius. But I don't think he needs to deny it here. And he could play a very efficient turn with actually starting with building the mine with the rich land, building a step, increasing his population, using all of his civil actions efficiently, not being forced to take any of the yellow cards. So I think that would be more efficient than taking the Engineering Genius here. But he gets the lab going first, that at least gives him some additional science. Even more science is gained. I start pushing, I think, with the Colossus. It's in my interest to start moving the deck. And the development of science is revealed, which made my choice for the turn even more obvious. Even without it, I think I certainly would have grabbed that early iron for 2 civil actions, but now I even have enough science to get into that iron at the next turn. I could now even think about not building the second lab here, so that because of the development of science, I have enough science even without building that to go into the iron at the next turn. With not having built a second lab, I have actually 6 resources at the next turn. I could go into to iron upgrades very quickly, doing 2 upgrades at the next turn. But then I have to spend 2 more civil actions without building the lab. I could just take the cultural heritage, but it would be somewhat expensive. I think it could be a fine turn to just go for iron and cultural heritage. But at the end, I decided to rather just build a second lab, get the science production going, and then take the rich land with already having the iron in hand. That's a fine card to take and also gives me basically 1 additional resource. And I think having some additional science, especially when going into an early iron build, without having any additional science sources from your leader and wonder, I think getting the lab going as quickly as possible is just quite strong. And with that, I discarded the idea of maybe just saving up some resources and going for 2 iron upgrades at the next turn. But who knows, if there's a 2 resource event revealed, thanks to the rich land, I could actually still go into 2 iron upgrades. I draw 2 tactics, the heavy cavalry and the legion. Sadly, no event to seed. Majondor seeds, the development of planning is revealed. The options for that are politics, warfare, and settlement. Majondor chooses the development of settlement, takes the cultural heritage, takes an early copy of irrigation, interestingly. Maybe just not the greatest alternative on the card draw, and at least it is something that you can upgrade into. GerisNezus builds the step of the Hanging Gardens, builds the 3rd mine, takes the drama, and that's an interesting move, develops the drama already. So that's quite a greedy move. He could have just taken it and increased his population. Taking the drama, I think, can be fine. There's Bach, there's Marlene, there's the Hollywood. He has some happy faces already from the Hanging Gardens. So if he goes for Hanging Gardens plus maybe 2 dramas, his happy faces should be covered for quite a while. Maybe if he then gets Marlene, he doesn't need anything else to fix his happy faces. So I think taking the drama here as an opportunity card for 1 civil action is fine. Investing 3 science into it is quite a bit greedy. It might prevent you from developing other technologies. I think it would be better to just take it in hand and increase his population. But GerisNezus has shown that he is a bit of a greedy player or likes to go into a very culture-heavy direction. So that's maybe just his playstyle. And if he gets out of this unpunished, of course it can still be fine. At least he saves up some food now. And yeah, let's see what he can do with that drama. Now it's my turn. I don't have an event to push, and this turn I will just start with going for an iron upgrade using my rich land. I take the breakthrough, and there's a military technology available for me for 1 civil action, the swordsman. I have the legion tactic in hand, but at this point I was also very much eyeing this Genghis Khan that is coming down the row, because I have a heavy cavalry tactic. I want to replace Hippocrates quickly, And together with the Colossus, maybe I can actually go for a bit of an aggressive game again, like in some of the other World Championship games before. So I was thinking I very well might want to go for Genghis Khan at the next turn, especially because I went now into this early iron production, but a lot of the H1 wonders are already gone. Himeji Castle is already discarded, Forbidden City and Universitas will be at the end of my turn. Then there are only two H1 wonders left. With having some iron production, it would be quite nice to build an H1 wonder, and the one that maybe would be quite nice if I go for Swordsman would be the Great Wall, and then together with Colossus, Great Wall, Genghis Khan, plus this Tactic and Swordsman, I would have actually quite some big strength potential. So I really was hoping to get Genghis Khan at the next turn, and now it was interesting to the decision on how to manage that with my tactics, because of course I was hoping to get Genghis Khan. I also thought it might be likely to get Genghis Khan, but yeah, if I reveal the heavy cavalry already, then of course he might be taken away, so I didn't want to reveal that tactic. I could also just discard the Legion tactic and draw 2 cards, and if I get Genghis Khan, that would be perfectly fine. But if one of my opponents should decide to go for Genghis Khan, I mean, Majondor has Sun Tzu, if he has a good tactic like Medieval Army and upgrades that. I mean, he has the Knights. I thought it's unlikely that he will go for Genghis Khan, but it's possible, and if I now discard the Legion tactic, and then Genghis Khan is taken away, that might be quite awkward. I also didn't want to discard the colonization card in a game with the Suez Canal, and so at the end, even though it's a bit awkward, I revealed the Legion tactic, so that even if I miss out on Genghis Khan, or if I maybe decide that I don't want to go for Genghis Khan, if there are maybe some more appealing options, then I have the tactic available. It costs me a draw, which is a bit annoying. I want to move the deck forward. I could even use some aggressions potentially if I get Genghis Khan, but still I wanted to have this Legion as an alternative available, and I also wanted to keep the colonization card. Not sure if that is the correct decision. Maybe I can just discard the Legion here, but at the end I decided to play it a bit more safe and keep the Legion tactic around. And I also do get a bit lucky and draw actually an event that I can push, even a strength event. Majondor seeds and opens the development of markets. He increases his population, takes the engineering genius, which he can use in the library, and interestingly takes the bread and circuses. I was a bit surprised to see that, because normally in Sun Tzu games the knights are valued very highly, but he just passes on the knights for one civil action, takes the bread and circuses with no Pierre in the game. There's Darwin, but there could still be a development of religion revealed, so I was a bit surprised by that move. And yeah, it could be an indicator that he just either plans on copying my Legion tactic or has his own Legion tactic. Maybe he's actually hoping to get Genghis Khan at the next turn. Or maybe he has a rebellion already seeded and wants to just be able to fix his happy faces. But I found it quite interesting that he's actually just skipping the knights here. Now it's GerisNezus' turn. He will go for the knights. I was kinda happy to see him skipping the knights, because I felt like now it's a lot more likely that I get Genghis Khan. He stays on 2, and GerisNezus has actually the knights available. He will take those, build some steps of the Hanging Gardens, builds a warrior to get out of corruption, and reveals the phalanx tactic, so we'll be able to increase his strength at the next turn. Now it's my turn. I decide to push the Call to Arms into the deck. The event revealed the development of crafts, and I also take resources from the development of markets, meaning I gain 4 additional resources at the start of my turn, and that just allows me first of all to go for Genghis Khan. I have collected all of the 3 Hippocrates tokens. Genghis Khan will not giving me additional strength this turn, but he will give me additional culture, because after electing him I will finish the Colossus and go for another iron upgrade, which I can do thanks to having taken the resources from the development of markets. I was hoping that with me having 6 food saved up and already having taken the development of settlement earlier on, I was getting 2 more population should be fine, especially with the Hippocrates token. If I get 2 more population out, then I lose only 1, meaning I still have the 2 population that I get to work with, so that those are enough to get into 1 heavy cavalry tactic, and so I was feeling I can be fine with just taking the resources, and that allows me to finish the Colossus, being safe from getting hit by any strength events, and also getting the culture from Genghis Khan, but also at least getting 1 iron upgrade going. And now I reveal the heavy cavalry tactic. It again costs me a draw, but I want to have that available soon, and I want to be able to fulfill one at the next turn, which I can only do by revealing it right now, because the event deck might flip very quickly, and then I just don't want to be in a position where I can't be the strongest because I didn't reveal the tactic the turn before. I draw another colonization card, so no way for me to move the deck forward at the next turn, but my opponent might get stronger anyway, and then I might not want to push anyway. Majondor Seeds, Development of Agriculture is revealed. He goes for the bread and circuses, builds one again. I thought it might be an indicator that a rebellion is in there, maybe so he also just wants to get out of corruption. He builds a warrior to get out of corruption, builds a step of the library, and ends his turn. Has delayed the library now by a bit, so that did cost him some science already now. GerisNezus is the weakest. He goes for the knights, builds a drama with Cleo's resources, finishes the hanging gardens with the engineering genius, and then builds a knight to go up to 7 strength, so he is now the strongest for now. Now it's my turn. I can't push, but I also don't want to push. And I want to get strongest. I have a call to arms in there. There might be other strength events, so I increase my population twice, go for the swordsman, build one, and then I sadly have to build a warrior, which will again be a bit military action inefficient. It's a bit of a theme so far in this game, with revealing the legion, then the heavy cavalry, and now having to build a warrior, which I then later on again might want to upgrade to swordsman, but it makes it that I'm at 10 strength, makes me the strongest, gives me the culture of Genghis Khan, and also makes me a bit threatening. Majondor maybe has to consider whether he wants to be potentially in danger of an aggression or not. And so I thought I really want to do that. After doing that, I have 1 civil action left, and with having still some iron upgrades to do, I decided to go with the rich land here. Yeah, that just felt like the best pick. I mean, I could take the reserves, maybe for more flexibility and the ability to get some food, but I am low in civil actions. I rather wanted to have the more civil action efficient card. I have enough food to increase my population 1 more time at the next turn, and with that I thought it should be fine. I took the right copy of Rich Land. To be honest, I don't remember exactly what my reasons were. I mean, it could be a fine card for Majondor to take. Now the urban growth falls down to 1. You could also take that card, but there's an urban growth available anyway. So I guess I limit his options maybe a little bit, but I don't remember my concrete thoughts about taking here the left or the right copy. Majondor Seeds. No rebellion. I was happy to see that. Maybe I can manage to dodge that. I was also kind of hoping that a Great Wall might be coming down the row, which would be a great wonder for me to build. Rats are revealed though, so sadly I lose 3 food. GerisNezus even loses 4. Majondor only 1, so maybe he was the one who pushed the event. Goes for the Code of Laws, finishes the library with the Engineering Genius, and builds a warrior. Takes the urban growth, but doesn't reveal a tactic yet. So if I would have had an aggression now, I would be able to play it against Majondor. GerisNezus Seeds, and a good harvest is revealed after the rats, so now some food is gained again, which is a bit awkward for GerisNezus because he has now corruption issues and there's no easy way for him to fix those. He would need to disband something, meaning he will this turn just take Leonardo, elect him, take the iron, take the alchemy, and just end his turn. With taking that many cards, there's maybe a chance that the age will already end before his next turn, so that's maybe the reason why he elects Leonardo. I'm not sure if it's that likely that the age will end. I think I will take the Great Wall and not more likely. I mean, I could also take Great Wall and Breakthrough actually. So yeah, maybe there is a chance with Majondor having 5 civil actions that the age will already end. Because if the age doesn't end, then of course keeping Cleo could be nice. Then he could go into Leonardo, but also use Cleo's resource 1 more time again for an alchemy upgrade. But I guess maybe there's a risk that the age will end. And unfortunately, he has corruption this turn. I was very happy to see the Great Wall coming down the row. Sadly, it will stay just barely on the 2 civil action area, but I was still very happy that I just have the chance to take that wonder. And after taking it, I have a civil action left, and I did consider taking that breakthrough here. I am very low in science, but I felt like if I don't upgrade this mine right now, then it might just get delayed by quite a bit, because at the next turn I want to finish the Great Wall, so that would be my whole turn, and then the iron upgrade already gets delayed by quite a bit, and I'm low in civil action, so despite me really needing the breakthrough for my science, I still wanted to play it more action efficiently and went for this upgrade. I could also build a step of the Great Wall, allowing me to finish that at the next turn, while still being able to take a card, but the cards that are coming down the row at the moment I felt are not the most important ones. The warfare, of course, could be interesting, getting an additional military action and additional strength, especially with the Colossus draw, so maybe I should leave myself open to potentially take that, but I'm also low in science, there's no Robespierre in the game, so I at the end just rather went with the upgrade, and then I can also do one upgrade from Warrior to Swordsman, maybe doing that before we go into H2, and I still have just enough resource left to finish the Great Wall. I wasn't really hoping that maybe there's no rebellion revealed before my next turn, so that I then can get a happy face from the Great Wall, and thanks to the Hippocrates token, even if the H ends, I still would be fine with having just one happy face. I draw a colony, so that gives me the option to push, and there's a Suez Canal in there. I have 2 colonization cards, so I was happy to see that. Majondor copies the Legion tactic, so indeed that Legion tactic that I revealed earlier will now be upgraded. So maybe the decision backfired. I mean, I got Genghis Khan, and now Majondor has the ability to upgrade this tactic. So backfired maybe, at least it's a bit costly for him military action wise. He will then go for Nostradamus, that a leader might help him being safe. And then he just develops the irrigation, goes for an upgrade, and with that also gets out of corruption. Now it's GerisNezus' turn. He offers the open borders agreement. Sadly to Majondor, I think with him having Nostradamus, it is a helpful pact for him, but it's still understandable that GerisNezus offers it to him, because I am very threatening with my setup that I'm having, and for me, of course, additional military actions would also be very, very helpful. So unfortunately I miss out on that, but that is just the fate that you often have when you're going for an early military push in 3-player games. You very unlikely will be the target of an open borders agreement, so will not be chosen as a pact partner, but yeah, that's just what you kind of have to expect. GerisNezus this turn will go for 2 lab upgrades. The H didn't end, so in hindsight maybe it could have been worthwhile to keep Cleo for another turn. Now it's my turn. As you can see, I do actually decide to push here. It's a bit risky, as said. There might be a rebellion coming, but there are also 2 events that I have seeded, a call to arms and a knowledge of the ancients. Both events would be quite nice. The knowledge of the ancients, it's arguably, you could argue that I maybe want to see it after my turn, because the resource is more important than the science to me. On the other hand, if I get the resource now, it allows me to finish the Great Wall and go for an upgrade from Warrior to Swordsman again, using another military action in H1, and being even stronger, making it more likely that if I maybe get an aggression with the Colossus draw, that I can deploy it immediately. So I at the end was willing to push, especially because the colony should be nice for me. I'm low in science, I have the Colossus bonus, I have those colonization cards. Of course, Majondor sees what I'm seeding, but I still was willing to push, hoping that there will be no rebellion revealed. That event could be quite annoying now. But it's the call to arms, so I was very relieved to see that. Maybe I shouldn't pushed here, it's a tough question, but then I would have needed to either discard a colony or discard a colonization card. So at the end I was willing to take the risk. I did not get punished here, call to arms is revealed, and my opponents lose some civil actions, and it's especially nice to see that event revealed now, because just barely my opponents get H1 draws instead of H2 draws, so that I think makes quite a big difference. And then this turn I will just finish the Great Wall. I'm at 14 strength already, and soon I might have even more strength because of the happy face and because of the Hippocrates token. I will be able to deploy that worker into the military. I can upgrade his warrior, so soon I might even be able to go up to 18 strength. So I was now very interested to see what I might draw with the Colossus, and if I, like in some of the other games that we have already seen, maybe can go for a bit of an aggressive for some aggressions and get some benefits out of me having a lot of strength. I do get under the colony an H1 aggression, was already quite happy about that draw. And with the Colossus draw, I do draw an H2 raid, so I was very happy to see that. It's the question if I will be able to deploy it already at the next turn, but in 2 turns when I'm at 18 strength, who knows, maybe I will be able to pull it off. I also have an event that I can push. Tactic might be a bit difficult to transition into, but maybe still nice to have, so I was quite happy about those draws. Majondor seeds, the scientific breakthrough is revealed. I gain the least out of that, so that's not great, but on the other hand, every additional science is quite useful for me. Majondor will then go for the Silk Road, builds a step, upgrades a farm, with that gets out of corruption and ends his turn. Has a bunch of yellow cards in hand, so the Silk Road should give him some nice value. GerisNezus goes for the Code of Laws. If he would have had 4 civil actions instead of 2, could have maybe taken the Conmon, and that Conmon could turn out to be quite interesting for me. I'm only at 11 science at the moment, but there's knowledge of the ancients on top, so if I open that, I will be able to get that Conmon at the next turn, which would be quite a big boost for me. GerisNezus, instead of getting civil actions from a government form, will now go for the Code of Laws, develops it, builds another knight going up to 9 strength, and then develops the iron, scores some resources with Leonardo da Vinci. I have those aggressions in hand, but Majondor only would need 1 defense card, GerisNezus only needs 2 defense cards, also from H1, so I felt like my chances are not that high. Of course I could go for raid 1 and at the next turn for raid 2, but with the knowledge of the ancients being on top, with the Conman being available, it was very clear for me that I want to push, and I decided to push the international agreement. I know exactly when it will be revealed, of course Majondor as well with having Nostradamus, but I was just hoping that I will have good chances to win that event, with me being that strong at the moment. So I push, knowledge of the ancients are revealed. I was very happy that I have actually the opportunity to get into that Conmon. There are some other interesting cards that I also could consider: Scientific Method, Selective Breeding, Nobel. But I think I'm stuck at 4 civil, 2 military actions. I need both of them, civil actions, but also the military actions, with me being in such an aggressive position. So at the end, I think it's clear that I need to go for the Conmon here. I can take it, develop it, build a swordsman, upgrade 1 that gets me out of corruption. I thought about just increasing my population, but then the question is, what card should I take? Maybe bread and circuses for Darwin, maybe irrigation, but I feel it's just a lot better to take the selective breeding here. It's just a better technology. I might have a chance to get one at some point anyway, because Majondor is already in irrigation farms, but having it available earlier might still be strong. And additionally, with me not increasing my population, I don't have an unhappy worker, and I was still thinking that a rebellion might very well be an event that my opponents might have pushed. At the end, it was not in this event deck. Instead, it was the scientific breakthrough. But now it might still be coming, so I felt like not increasing my population could be quite nice here. I actually keep both aggressions in hand, discard the tactic, and I do draw 2 events. Both of them could be interesting. Ravages of Time to maybe destroy the Colossus at some point, Cold War for some additional science. Majondor seeds, the border conflict is revealed. I was happy to see that there's actually a strength event coming, quite an influential one that I didn't seed. So I gained 3 additional resources, might even cause me some corruption issues, but still was happy to see it, and GerisNezus will need to destroy something during his turn. Majondor will go for the monarchy, gives him additional military action. With that, maybe also makes him a bit more safe. He builds another bread and circuses with an urban growth for free with the Silk Road bonus. Or did he already use a breakthrough? He did already use a breakthrough, so he did pay 1 resource, but that resource is important to pay, because otherwise he would have had corruption issues even after building the warrior. With the warrior, he's now at 12 strength with Nostradamus, meaning he only needs 1 H2 defense card. At this point has already drawn quite a bunch of them, so he should be somewhat safe, or at least safer than GerisNezus, who seeds, and indeed the rebellion is revealed. I was happy to see that it is out. Was quite happy that I didn't get hit by it when I still didn't had the Great Wall finished, and now I can increase my population without having to be worried about getting potentially hit by that event, so that was quite nice for me. And now GerisNezus will upgrade a mine, actually build a mine, has lost one because of the border conflict, takes an efficient upgrade, takes the railroad. The railroad, I think, a good choice for him. The 5 additional strength will help him a lot, while at the same time increasing his economy. Is actually skipping Nobel here. Nobel could maybe put him at 11 strength, so that could be interesting. Maybe instead of the efficient upgrade, he should go for Nobel here. Even 1 more science, 2 more strength. If he has only 1 H1 defense card, and if he only draws 1 H2 defense card, he could defend against an aggression. I did put some effort into getting stronger. I have had the Colossus draws, so I think Nobel probably should be taken here, maybe instead of the efficient upgrade. Now GerisNezus is only at 9 strength. He would need 2 H2 defense cards in order to defend. He didn't draw that many cards yet, so it was clear for me that I want to try that H2 raid now. And it is actually successful, so that of course is quite a big swing. Even more resources gained now after the border conflict, so I will actually have quite some severe corruption issues, but I was of course still very happy that I got that many resources, and with destroying the 2 labs from GerisNezus, I just yeah, that's just a very big hit towards the civilization, so he will need some time to recover from it, and that's definitely a very big setback for him. I have now lots of resources, I increased my population, but even doing that is not enough to even be out of 4 corruption. So after increasing my population, I decided to build a religion, but there are also some cards that I certainly want to take. First of all, the scientific method. Sadly, I don't have enough science to get into that right now, but I will have at the next turn, so that's quite strong. And then I build a religion to at least only have 2 corruption, produces me a bit of culture. Rebellion is out now already, but still, it saves me. It basically only costs me 1 resource, and I then can aim towards one of the copies of Organized Religion. There's no PR in the game, and then I think that is a fine investment. And then I still have to spend some of my civil actions, and at the end I decided that I just want to go for Nobel here. Genghis Khan has given me some great value, has allowed me to go for a bit of a strength push, putting me at 18 strength combined with the Colossus and the Great Wall. The culture from him made it that I'm actually having the culture lead right now, so generally I felt quite good about my position. I could keep him, maybe wait for a leader like Newton or something, maybe also for Bach if I get a copy of Opera. But Nobel is there now, he will give me some much needed science. If I go into scientific method, then maybe I will also be prepared to score some Nobel prizes later on. And it actually doesn't cost me any strength to go for Nobel. It even gains me some strength, because after electing him, and then I will also take 2 more cards, the Architecture and the Engineering Genius. Architecture, I might need a bit of time until I can get into that. I might not be able to save resource in the scientific method, but still it might be a good technology to have. If I win the developed territory that I've seeded, I maybe want to go for the Suez Canal, and then the Architecture could make that a bit easier for me. Same is true for the Engineering Genius. I mean, I could have also just taken a cavalryman. Maybe I should have taken them. Maybe I should have taken the navigation for the colonies that are coming. Especially skipping the cavalryman is a bit questionable. But now if I take those 2 cards, I also make it that this copy of Selective Breeding will be discarded before GerisNezus' turn, meaning he will have quite some issues with getting population out. So that is one advantage. Of course, GerisNezus has not already taken a hit, but nonetheless, if he builds the railroad, I still think he can maybe recover. And yeah, those cards could just be nice for me. I don't have a tactic yet for the cavalryman. So, and for the navigation, it's a bit of a science investment, a colony that I have seeded might be revealed a bit too early anyway. So at the end I just took those 2 cards, and at the end of my turn I also decided to copy the upgraded Legion tactic, meaning instead of 18 I'm now even at 19 strength. Of course it costs me all of my draws, but at least I have events in hand and aggression in hand. I keep the aggression because I felt like there's certainly a chance I might be able to deploy it at the next turn to gain even more resources, and I have at the next turn hopefully some good ways to invest my resources. And there's also a chance that the developed territory might be revealed before my next turn. In that case, if I should be able to win that, I then have maybe the Cold War to be able to push. But yeah, with having already an aggression and an event in hand, I was willing to sacrifice those draws as I soon want to copy this tactic anyway. And it also makes it that I'm at 19 strength, maybe allowing me to actually go for a second aggression against GerisNezus. Majondor seeds and opens the developed territory. I am able to win that one. I think I was not willing to send more away than a swordsman. Could even consider that I should not bid for this to maybe make it that I can go for the next aggression, but it's only an H1 aggression. The damage to GerisNezus is at this point not the most important, because he has already taken a big hit, and also with the Suez Canal in there, I just didn't want to leave a colony to my opponents if I can somehow avoid it at a reasonable cost. So I, at the end, was willing to bid a swordsman my card, and that's also just enough for me to win that colony, and of course the 3 science is actually quite useful for me. Despite that colony being out, Majondor is actually going for the navigation. Of course helps him with the strength, but a big indicator that there may be some more colonies coming actually. Majondor also upgrades some warriors to swordsman, is now even at 15 strength. GerisNezus doesn't see, he has just enough science saved up for a conmon. With the additional military actions, he should now be a lot safer, especially also with me, of course, now losing 3 strength with having sent the swordsman away. He then continues with upgrading his mines, takes a rich land, a breakthrough in the reserves, and with the reserves he will be able to finish the railroad at the next turn if he wants to. Now it's my turn. The chances that this aggression goes through are not that high, so instead I rather seeded a Cold War into the deck. The strategic territory is revealed. As you can see, I actually bid 2 units here. Didn't really want to win it for that price, but I was thinking that it's very likely that Majondor will bid more than that, and if I at least can make it that he discards a card, or maybe even a Rifleman instead of a Warrior, that might be quite nice. And especially if it indeed costs him a Rifleman instead of a Warrior, that would make a big difference, because I was actually a bit annoyed to see that colony, or it's a bit unfortunate, because now Majondor wins it for just a Warrior and a card. He was at 15 strength, now out of the sudden he's at 16 strength. I can't increase my population and rebuild a unit here, so it's quite difficult for me to get stronger this turn. I would need to invest in Rifleman, but it would be an awkward investment. But the event on top is the international agreement. And now, thanks to the +1 strength from the strategic territory, if Majondor pushes at his turn, he will be able to win that event, and gaining 5 civil actions will probably generate him quite a lot of value. So I felt like that could be a bit of a swing, but he also planned nicely for it. That's of course also part of the truth. He had Nostradamus, he knew about what events were coming, and he went for those Rifleman upgrades, clearly knowing that if he wins the strategic territory, he might have a shot at actually winning the international agreement at his turn. So he prepared for it nicely and might now get a reward, because before I seeded I thought, if I win the international agreement, hopefully at Majondor's turn, I maybe can use it then at my next turn to take a wonder like Statue or Suez Canal if I draw a colony, and that could really help me, as I'm still only at 6 civil actions, which is still somewhat limiting, so I thought it could be quite strong to win it, but now Majondor very likely will be able to win it. This turn I certainly want to start with going for some science upgrades. I can go for 2 upgrades, that gets me out of corruption. I actually thought about just grabbing the Eiffel Tower here. I still have a bunch of resources left. I have this engineering genius. Sadly, the engineering genius and the architecture don't work that well together on the Eiffel Tower, but still, it could be a nice wonder to invest into. But at the moment I don't need the happy faces, and I, at the end, felt like it's just even better to get even more production going. So after having done 2 lab upgrades, I can just continue my turn with doing 2 farm upgrades. So, and basically a dream turn here. Develop scientific method, upgrade, develop selective breeding, upgrade. Completely efficient, getting all of my production started. I have all areas of my economy covered. My strength is still covered. Culture-wise, it's quite close, and at the moment I don't have a clear way to increase my culture income, but with my production I felt just quite comfortable, and so I felt like it's maybe the best to just go for all of those upgrades. I could of course also miss out on 1 upgrade and take something like efficient upgrade, but it just didn't feel worth it. And at the end I felt very happy about the turn. I was kind of hoping that I will draw a strong colony now, and maybe that I then will be able to go for Suez Canal with that engineering genius and the architecture, and then I felt like I would be in a very strong position. Skip the team sports here, but there are still copies of Organized Religion in the deck. I draw no colony, but a fine event to push, the popularization of science. Now it's Majondor's turn. He seeds, opens the international agreement, is able to take some stuff, chooses to take coal and 2 copies of urban growth. And yeah, at least for now he's missing the science to get into coal, so he just uses the urban growth with the Silk Road bonus, but I guess it would have been for free anyway. But he uses the urban growth to build a 3rd lab, takes the frugality and the strategy. GerisNezus seeds, opens the vast territory, and yeah, that of course can be quite influential. There's still a Suez Canal to come, so I really wanted to win this one, but I wasn't willing to send a whole army, because I have only 6 resources available. I would not be able to rebuild, and it would also be quite a big price to pay. Of course, you could argue that I can transition into Hussars, but with the Great Wall, doing that is really not that great. So at the end, I think I only bid 2 units. I'm not totally certain. Maybe I also built a whole army without my defense card. Could be the case. But luckily enough, at the end I am willing to win this colony for 2 units and my colonization card, so drawing that one also being quite strong. And now I have actually lots of yellow tokens. I have already gained 1 from Hippocrates, 1 from the developed territory, now another 3 from the vast territory, meaning my yellow bank is quite strong and I soon will be able to get a lot of population out. But I have invested a lot of resources, meaning resource-wise, I'm not that high at the moment, also no yellow cards in hand, so that could be a bit of an issue, especially now that I need to maybe rebuild those two swordsmen. I'm again at 0 resources, so that was one thing that was worrying me a bit. GerisNezus this turn upgrades the railroad, finishes the railroad, upgrades the mine, takes the rifleman, stays at 0 science for now. Maybe can get Bach at the next turn. My turn, I don't push as I'm the weakest, and yeah, then I just increase my population twice, rebuild those swordsmen. I increase my population again. I think pestilence could potentially be in there. I think rats were already out. I take the wave of nationalism. I am low on resources. Maybe not that vulnerable yet because I have the Great Wall, but who knows if Majondor gets strategy down, maybe gets somehow into the tactic. Things could get a bit dangerous, and just having that wave in hand with me now being a bit low on resources could be quite strong. So I was willing to pay two civil actions for that. And then with my last civil action, I take the organized religion, could also just increase my population. I might not need the organized religion for a while, but then again I might need it at some point, and I have now a chance to get it for one civil action, so I felt like it should still be a good choice to take that. When who knows, if I get now a lot of food and get a lot of population out quickly, if I get in Mandela, maybe I can use the organized religion nicely to get then some more happy faces going. I draw some more aggressions, but at the moment I am not in a position to pull them off. Majondor finishes the Silk Road. It's the last turn, very likely, where he has the chance to do that. And thanks to having built a lab at the turn before, he can now develop the architecture, finish the Silk Road, and still has enough science left to go for the coal at the next turn. He might get James Watt, of course, so he might not need that much science anyway, but still, he is now not dependent on James Watt, but leaves himself open for him. He's actually the only leader, together with Darwin. Darwin, of course, also could be a fine one for Majondor, so he can go for either Watt or Darwin at the next turn. Now it's GerisNezus' turn. He goes for Bach. It's probably the best choice for him. Of course, he could go for Newton, try building up a bit of economy, but maybe he should just try to survive and run a bit away with the culture. He did, I think, recover somewhat nicely. He has 7 civil actions. He has 8 resource income, with that actually the biggest resource income at the moment. Has not the biggest culture income. Has at least still 2 workers lying around, but he at the moment doesn't have a way to get population income, is on 0 science, so those will still be some big disadvantages for him going into H3, but he's definitely not out of the game, and if he doesn't get punished for those weaknesses, he could maybe just run away with the culture with Bach. Interestingly, he takes the Suez Canal. Of course, that might help him maybe getting some workers with a vast territory or inhabited territory, or maybe he has something like autonomous. He also builds a lab, at least getting a bit of science income back so that he can at some point go for the rifleman, but he still leaves himself with just enough resources so that he can finish the Suez Canal at the next turn. I'm the strongest, so I wanted to push. I pushed the popularization of science. The event revealed is actually another colony. I already invested a lot into the vast territory. I have no defense cards left, so I just passed in that colony. And at the end, GerisNezus was able to win it for just a night, so his Suez Canal that he took, with having 0 colonies, is now looking a bit better and might again maybe stabilize his position. I start my turn by taking the cannons. I already went for a gamble with not taking those cavalrymen earlier on and instead taking architecture and engineering genius, which until now didn't pay off that much. We'll see if I will be able to use them during H3. So I felt like I need to go for the cannons. I don't have a tactic for them, but I have the Great Wall, and I might just need to build some of them, hoping that I maybe get an H3 tactic. At least I will have the Colossus draws. After that, I, of course, want to get out of corruption. I could increase my population. I think I will also do that during this turn, but there's another way to get out of corruption and to get a much-needed civil action. That's to go for the justice system. I have enough science to support it, and I think it's just a big difference being at 7 or at 6 civil actions, so I was happy that I have a chance to grab that here for 1 civil action, and with the remaining 3 civil actions, I then grab the opera, because there are Chaplin, Marlene, and the Hollywood in the game, so having the option to go for operas, also with having the architecture in hand, might be quite strong. At the moment I'm slowly falling a bit behind in culture, and the operas could give me a way to just get some culture income going, and opens up some opportunities for me in H3 if I get Chaplain or Marlene. And then with the remaining 2 actions, I just increased my population twice. Could have not grabbed the Opera, increased my population yet another time, but I felt like it's probably good to have that card in hand. I draw some cards, and I will also get my Colossus draws, draw some strength events in a colony, and I get some H3 draws, and I was happy about one particular card, and that's the impact of population. With having that food production, with having all of those yellow tokens, that card has the potential to be quite strong for me. Also the shock troops could at least be fine, but at the moment it would still be a bit of an effort to get into those, and also not ideal with the Great Wall, but at least an option in addition to the Hussars. Impact of variety also has the potential to be fine with me having some good science income. Majondor seeds, the Cold War is revealed, so even more science for both of us. He this turn will go for James Watt, can go for coal, goes for an upgrade, takes the revolutionary idea, and plays the reserves for resource, does not take the cannons, interestingly. Now it's GerisNezus' turn, he finishes the Suez Canal. I was interested to see what colony he has. And it's not a yellow token colony, it's the autonomous territory, so that's of course also strong. Could have taken food from that, but instead rather decides to go for the science. I guess both of those things are quite a bottleneck for him, and I think going for the science is very understandable here. Even though he does not grab the River idea. I thought for a moment he might grab that, but he wants to have the cannons available, which I guess is fair enough. Has those 2 breakthroughs, and with that soon can build some units. And then he takes the patriotism and develops the rifleman already. Now that we are at the start of H3, we can maybe take a quick look at the overview. And culture-wise, it's quite close. GerisNezus is now slowly starting to get a bit of a lead. Has the biggest resource income, so he has some things going. Has the most civil actions, but still has some bottlenecks with population, income, and science. But yeah, he has enough civil actions to take a lot of yellow cards. Unfortunately for him, 2 out of those revolutionary ideas might be taken away from him. But yeah, he is definitely in a fine position and has definitely chances to win this game. So especially he can very cheaply build some more theaters, have a lot of culture income, then maybe just focus on defending himself. So I was interested to see if he maybe can actually survive that raid from me, and with the railroad and the Suez Canal, the probably strongest 2 H2 wonders that were in the mix in this game, make maybe a comeback and win this game. Then we have Majondor. Has the lowest amount of civil action, so that's a bit of an issue, but also has enough science maybe to get into an H3 government form relatively quickly. Has James Watt, so will be able to go for some coal upgrades quickly, and I also felt like his position is not bad. So I, during H2, especially at the beginning or overall, just felt my position is quite strong. I get the iron upgrades going, I have the Great Wall, I got the raid going. I then went into this I had this very efficient turn where I went into scientific method and selective breeding. Nonetheless, I felt like it's definitely not like I'm clearly ahead here. I still like my position. I have a very solid economy and lots of population, which also is an advantage in itself. And felt like I have good chances to maybe get myself in the position to win this game, but my opponents also have some good stuff going. I was interested to see how it will go. At the moment, I felt like positions are overall quite close. At my turn, I decided to push the impact of population. I was considering waiting with that, because maybe I can get even more population out, but there's one particular card coming down the row, the mechanized agriculture. Majondor as James Watt, I was thinking he will take it, also maybe to take it away from GerisNezus, and then maybe it's not even bad if it is revealed early, so that Majondor maybe doesn't get the rewards out of the farm upgrades yet, and maybe I can increase my population a bunch of times before he can increase his population a bunch of times. So at the end I felt like it's actually fine if that impact is revealed relatively quickly, so I pushed that into the deck, also with being strongest. The economic progress is revealed. Happy to see that. Even more food, maybe not the thing that I need the most, but some more resources are fine for me. GerisNezus, of course, having now lots of resources, but maybe could struggle a little bit to spend those with having not that many population and the dramas being quite cheap. And Majondor could have maybe soon gained a lot more out of that event if he would have upgraded some more mines with James Watt, but that event was now revealed a bit too early, and I was quite happy about that. Now As you can see, I grabbed the multimedia this turn. I thought about some other lines that I could take. I could go for opera, architecture, start building 1 or even 2 operas. I could start building a bit of military, maybe even cavalryman. But I felt like this multimedia, even though it's expensive, is just quite strong. Generally, getting into multimedia as did earlier, I think, is very strong if you have the population for it. And additionally, I have Nobel, there will be Nobel Prizes, I will get even more science, and there's also popularization of science coming that I've seeded, which will be even bigger with the multimedia. So I was willing here to pay some additional civil actions for the multimedia over instead of just maybe going for the opera. But I have enough science to go for multimedia and the architecture. I built one, and then increasing my population would get me out of corruption. But as I don't have a tactic yet that works with just infantry unit and cannons, I at the end was willing to pick up the cavalryman. Maybe I could play a bit greedily, but I have those tactics in hand. And going for modern infantry and tanks in order to go for this tactic could just be a bit too expensive, so I wanted to have the cavalryman available, and with that I need to build a swordsman to get out of corruption. Could also build a warrior, maybe that's fine, would also be fine, but at the end I just went with the swordsman. I keep the 2 tactics in hand, 1 impact and the politics of strength. I draw the impact of happiness. At the moment I don't need that many happy faces, but maybe it could at some point turn out to be a fine impact. Majondor seeds opens the developed territory. I can't really bid a lot on that, so I just pass. Majondor sadly at the end is able to win that colony extremely cheaply for just a warrior, and additional science actually allows him to go for the communism. So he could have gone into mechanized agriculture already, but decides that it's more important to get the civil actions on track, and then he upgrades 1 mine. Could have even upgraded 2 mines, but decides that this revolutionary idea is important to have. Maybe also a bit of a denial pick from GerisNezus so that he doesn't have a chance to grab both of those cards. And yeah, actually 1 revolutionary idea made its way around to GerisNezus again, which I think is quite a strong card for him, and again might help him to just be at the end at a fine position here. GerisNezus seeds opens the popularization of science. That event is quite strong for me now. Again, 9 additional culture on GerisNezus, but also 6 on Majondor. GerisNezus takes the first copy of Air Forces, the revolutionary idea, builds 2 dramas, upgrades some units to be at 16 strength and not the weakest, takes the endowment and also the military build-up. Now it's my turn. Thanks to the popularization of science, I'm actually on a similar amount of culture as GerisNezus. I push the impact of variety here. I will get some blue technologies this turn, and I just felt like I will, this at least should end up being a neutral impact, but there's even the chance that it will be a good impact. The event revealed us the freedom of movement. It was a bit tricky because this turn my plan was to build an additional multimedia. But my first natural response to seeing this freedom of movement was, of course, okay, I want to put the scientific method into multimedia. But then I don't have the resource left to also build a multimedia, so it just felt a bit worse than just building a multimedia because I just don't have the lab any longer. At the end, I decided to actually move a swordsman into multimedia, keeping both of those labs, but still getting the additional multimedia. You could, of course, argue that it's overkill to have those 2 labs and the 2 multimedias, but I think it's not the case. First of all, I have Nobel. There soon will be Nobel Prize. As you can see, I decided to opt into democracy this turn. I will also take the internet this turn. Having an additional lab will score me even more points for that wonder. And additionally, I might still get a leader like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Sid Meier, Marie Curie. Of course, for Marie Curie, 1 lab is enough, but especially if I should get Bill Gates, it could still be nice to have 2 of those labs around. Could maybe also move a religion to multimedia, but I have this organized religion and I won't take the professional sports this turn. So I don't know if I get those at the next turn, so I didn't want to move the religion anywhere. I take the democracy. I considered going for military theory, maybe even also going for cannons potentially, but and then just taking the democracy in hand. But I felt like I don't really need the strength. I don't have knowledge about any strength events that are coming, and it's just better to get into the democracy earlier. It gives me an additional civil actions, it gives me 3 additional culture. So I just took the democracy, developed it. I certainly want to take the military theory. I want to take the internet. And then I increase my population 1 time. And then the question was, do I want to increase my population another time, or do I want to grab the satellites? The satellites is just yet another cheap technology for potential Nobel Prizes. Scores me 2 points for the impact of variety, and if I have it in hand, opens up the possibility for a very big impact of progress if I should be lucky enough to draw it. And with that, I at the end decided to take the satellites, but it also comes at a drawback. First of all, of course, I am a bit in civil action depth with having all of the food lying around, especially because the impact of population will be coming soon, and if both of my opponents see it, then at the next turn it might already be on top, meaning I either have to push into it, with it being revealed a bit too early, or I have to stop seeding in order to increase my population a bunch of times. So I considered that because of that impact coming, that maybe I don't want to grab the satellites, but maybe Majondor doesn't want to push because he's the strongest, maybe GerisNezus doesn't have that many good impacts. So at the end I was willing to take the satellites, but also thought that it could definitely backfire. At least there's no chance that the impact will be revealed before my next turn. I keep 1 tactic, 2 events in hand, draw some more impacts, all of them not being ideal. Agriculture could be quite strong against GerisNezus, but it's still possible that he gets a Mag Ag, and Majondor will very likely soon get a Mag Ag going, so he might have the best score in that impact, and the other ones also might be a bit risky, but still some more impact options are always nice, so I was still somewhat happy about the draw. Majondor seeds, so the event deck does move forward, and unfortunately there's the terrorism revealed, which is a bit of a setback because I will now lose a multimedia, and especially with having taken the internet, which had quite some big potential before the terrorism and still has, but that certainly will cost me quite some points in culture income and also at least 6 points from the internet, so quite a big swing. GerisNezus only loses an H1 lab, so that is certainly a bit of a setback here. Majondor increases his population, builds a rifleman, goes for the mechanized agriculture, can go for those upgrades for free with what? Takes chaplain, movies, patriotism, and goes for another upgrade. The next turn he then might be able to transition into going for 1 movie with chaplain and starting a lot of culture income. Doesn't have the civil actions to take the Hollywood though, which could have been an interesting choice. Now it's GerisNezus' turn. I'm actually the weakest, so I potentially could get punished by something. Luckily enough, there's no strength event on top. I was actually willing to bid a lot for this colony. Getting the additional draws might be quite strong. Maybe I get a tactic that I can get a lot easier into than the shock troops. It would also be somewhat costly with the impact of population coming, but I was still willing to bid an army. At the end I didn't win it, which is maybe also fine, and GerisNezus at least has to send 2 units away, which is quite costly for him as he is quite low in population. But he has yet another colony for the Suez Canal, moved a mine into the rifleman with the freedom of movement. Majondor moved a bronze to coal, so to again also use James Watt. GerisNezus makes an interesting choice here, goes into the oil, goes for an upgrade, is now at 17 resource income, but with having no population and no science, he will struggle to invest those resources, and I was kind of expecting that maybe he has an impact of industry in hand, or maybe already seeded, because otherwise I felt like that oil doesn't make too much sense, even though of course his resource income is now quite strong. He will take the Hollywood, so at least he can invest his resource into that. But I also felt like the 9 science that he invested into the oil might be missing for something else, but if he has the impact of industry, maybe it could be worthwhile. And his last action during the turn is actually very influential for me. And I'm not sure if it's the correct thing to do. Maybe we wanted to keep some more cards in hand. Maybe we wanted to be military action efficient. But revealing this tactic, with me having swordsmen and cannons in the Great Wall, was just an extremely big relief for me, because those shock troops would have been extremely annoying to get into, and I would maybe be a lot more vulnerable, but now I know that soon I can copy the defensive army tactic, and I have lots of population. I can easily build a lot of those tactics. I mean, I might not have the most resources, but I have at least a wave. And so I felt a lot safer now with that tactic being revealed. Now it's my turn. I could have some impacts that might be seedable, but all of them are not ideal. And with that, I decided to not push and instead get a lot more points for the impact of population that is on top. So that was my main goal for this turn. I have to pay my civil action death, so I start my turn by increasing my population 2 times. Now I have an unhappy worker, which of course I don't want to have, and I go into the organized religion. I will actually grab the professional sports at the end of my turn, but investing into those is just a bit more expensive and something that I didn't want to do yet. As I might still need some resource for the military. Of course, the professional sports also give me 4 strength, but maybe the additional resource could mean being able to fulfill another defensive army tactic at some point. And so I, for now, went for the organized religion to fix my happy faces. Going for 1 upgrade, increasing my population 1 more time gets me out of corruption. I then increase my population again, it just costs me 2 points for the impact that is coming. I have now 7 free population lying around. And my first instinct was to, after doing all that, just take the air forces to be safe. Then with the defensive army tactic, cannons, air forces, I should be completely safe. But then I asked myself, maybe am I also safe without the air forces? Do I need to take those? And it was actually quite a tough question. I spent a lot of time on this turn, really agonizing on how I want to spend my actions exactly. I came to the conclusion that likely I don't need the air forces to be safe. It could backfire if Majondor gets tanks. At least I know that he doesn't have the shock troops tactic, but if he gets rockets and air forces and has something like positional army, certainly it's possible that he can build up a lot of strength. But it will also take a lot of effort, and with having Chaplin in movies, I just felt like he wants to get into movies. But even if he builds up some strength, with having the strength from military theory satellites, with being able to go for lots of defensive army tactics, I have a lot of population. I can easily build 3 or maybe even maybe 2 more turns pass or 3 more turns. I can go maybe even for 4 defensive army tactics, and I did some calculations and actually felt relatively safe even without the air forces, and with that took the professional sports yet another way maybe to also gain some strength, especially if I should take an urban growth at some point. And also a way to score more points for the internet and just a cheaper technology. And that actually could make a difference because at the next turn I thought, and it was also a bit tricky how I want to spend my last civil action, because I could just develop a tech like military theory or satellites. I mean, military theory would be the most natural one. But the thing is, I was eyeing that Bill Gates. None of my opponents has any labs, unless someone goes for hate draft, but I think Bill Gates is not that strong for me in the position that he needs to be hate drafted. And with that, I was thinking it should be quite likely to get Bill Gates at the next turn, meaning soon there will be Nobel Prizes, meaning I don't really want to develop a technology this turn, but my hand is full. I can't increase my population another time. I don't want to spend resources in building anything. Because I ideally just want to build more multimedias if I don't get disrupted by anything. And then I thought, well, let's just use the engineering genius for the step. Of course, I only gained 2 resources, but at least I gained some resources out of it. And then I felt like, I guess that's maybe a fine last civil action. I also freeze up my hand so that I don't start into the next turn by having a full hand. But I again thought about, can I maybe be a bit greedy? And at the end, I actually built the first 2 steps of the internet normally, allowing me to, at the next turn, use the engineering genius for 4 resources, getting more resources, just in general, in order to make a big internet. But if I do a thing like this, of course, I needed to be very safe on how risky that is for me and how likely it is that I might get punished. So I thought about my next turns, and again, with me being able to copy the defensive army tactic, I just felt quite safe. There are also lots of reserves that can still come. I was hoping to get Bill Gates for more resources. And yeah, so at the end, I was actually willing to go for the turn, a bit greedy. I don't take the air forces. I actually invest 5 resources already into the internet. But I just thought I won't get punished here. And I also felt like Majondor maybe just wants to build at least one movie, as that would be a very big cost to not build it. And yeah, there's a chance it might backfire maybe, but overall I felt still quite safe, and with that at the end was willing to go for the turn. I draw some impacts, 2 wars, 1 impact of Harmony, which also has quite some potential as I do have such a big amount of population. Majondor Seeds opens the impact of population. That is now quite a strong one for me. I gained plus 12 against Majondor. Having seeded it a bit earlier has paid off. Majondor just at the turn before went for those mechanized agricultures, but it's just revealed before he can go for the population increases. And GerisNezus even gets 0 culture out of that after having maybe sent 2 workers away for the strategic territory. It's now very low in population, and again a bigger score against those opponents. And I have drawn that impact with the Colossus, so the Colossus doesn't have any culture income attached to it, but sometimes you will just, with the Colossus, find such a good impact for yourself, and then the Colossus also results just in a big culture gain, like in this case. Majondor goes for Chaplain, goes for the movies, goes for some culture income, which I think is strong for him, but I was also a bit happy to see that he doesn't go all in on military, because there's a bit of a risk still that maybe he could go for too much strength, but for now he goes for the movies, and no rockets on the row, he skips the tanks, so for the moment things look somewhat safe. GerisNezus plays the endowment for 6 points, finishes the Hollywood, takes the next copy of Revolutionary Idea and the movies, which allows him to spend some resources into upgrades here. Yeah, looks like a solid turn. I mean, he skips cards like Military Theory and Fundamentalism, which could allow him to go for more strength, but maybe for the moment he felt relatively safe. Bill Gates, as expected, is available for me. At this turn, I also start by seeding the impact of Harmony. There's an H2 event still, and the National Bride is revealed, probably seeded by GerisNezus, who just finished the Hollywood to maybe gain even more culture. Otherwise, maybe he would not be for me. I'm not sure. Maybe he still would be, but I guess not. He was at 105 after his turn, even with finishing the Hollywood. So, yeah, I guess he needed to finish the Hollywood in order to be able to win the National Bride. I this turn can start my turn by using the Engineering Genius. There's maybe a chance that the age will end before my next turn, so using it right now is good, and also frees up a space in my hand so that afterwards I will then be able to go for Bill Gates. After electing Bill Gates, I am now the weakest, and it was also one of the reasons why I didn't build a professional spouts the turn before. It was not only because I wanted to invest less resources, but also because I now have a chance to be the weakest for certain, so that I can use the wave for 6 resources. If I would have built a professional sports, I would now be at 18 strength, so even if I copy the tactic and go down to 16, I would not be able to use the wave for the full amount of resources. That was actually also a consideration why I didn't want for the professional sports at the turn before. But now I'm the weakest, I can play the wave for 6 resources, go for the cannons, build a cannon, develop the military theory, take the reserves to at least gain one of those copies of reserves, and then to get out of corruption I have to build another cannon. I could wait with copying the tactic, maybe that's actually the correct thing to do, but if I copy the tactic, I have actually a bit of offensive potential, with just building a bunch of more units, developing satellites, developing professional sports. It also now kind of pays off maybe to have the professional sports in hand instead of the air forces, because I went now for the cannons in the military theory, which was foreseeable, and now I have 15 science at the next turn, which is just enough to go for satellites and professional sports, so I gain a Nobel Prize this turn, but also at the next turn. Or another reason why I really wanted to get the cheaper tech instead of the air forces. So I'm now at 30 strength. I had drawn tourism. I have actually, I guess GerisNezus has quite a bunch of wonders. If he accepts the pact, it could be a strong one to have. Also another war. Majondor offers a military alliance to me. I was not sure if I should accept it. At this point it was already clear in the standings that GerisNezus won't have a chance to win the group, but Majondor still has. So if Majondor sees any advantage in having the 3 additional strength, then maybe I should just reject the pact. But it's still just also 3 free strength for me. there might be situations where it could also backfire for me not having the strength. And so I just accepted it. But him offering it to me is an indicator that maybe he plans to set up for a war, and that he maybe thinks it's more likely that he gets the war going against GerisNezus. And then, of course, the military alliance could give him 3 additional culture, and I might be occupied with using my politics actions for something else, so I might not be able to cancel the pact. So maybe I should have just rejected here, actually. Then Majondor placed the revolutionary idea, takes the rockets, looks like he might have a tactic for those, increases his population twice, builds a rocket, builds another rocket, and has the positional army tactic. He also takes the military theory, doesn't take the reserves, making it impossible for GerisNezus to anti-age. I think it might have been possible maybe if he would have taken the reserves, and of course the military theory also just results in additional strength, because he doesn't have enough science for air forces anyway, but what he can do at the next turn is to declare the war, go for military theory, and go for another tactic, and that will be a significant amount of strength. So I will have to see at my next turn if I can be safe from that, but him offering this pact to me is of course already an indicator that he finds it more likely, thinks it's more likely that the war, if he has one, will be directed against GerisNezus. Let's see how GerisNezus can prepare for that war. He cedes, immigration is revealed, but no one loses any population. GerisNezus develops the cannons, plays the patriotism, increases his population, upgrades a mine, destroys a mine. Him upgrading mine again is an indicator that maybe an impact of industry is coming soon. He builds 2 cannons, takes the reserves, another reserves, and a modern infantry. Can then maybe copy the positional army tactic at the next turn. I'm not sure if Majondor needed to reveal that, because if he goes for the military theory at the next turn, he should be able to declare the war, build 3 units, and then reveal the tactic. Now GerisNezus might have a chance to copy it. Maybe it doesn't even make it a big difference for him, because he doesn't have enough science to go for air forces right now. So maybe Majondor did take a close look into that. But I found it an interesting choice that he revealed the tactic already, because I think he also would have gotten an additional draw if he just kept it in hand, and at the next turn it might very likely at his turn already be h4. So an interesting choice to reveal the tactic. Maybe it allows him to build an additional unit, but I guess he has military theory and patriotism with the Silk Road, so he has more than enough military action. So yeah, an interesting choice. The age doesn't end. I have another turn. I have, of course, now to make certain that I don't get hit by anything bad. I could just offer the international tourism, but I instead opted towards ceding the impact of happiness, which might just give me more points. And GerisNezus, I would gain more culture than out of this pact than him. There's a chance that he just rejects. And generally, I felt good about my position and just wanted to get a safe impact of happiness in, and I will build a professional sports this turn. So I decided to cede. There's also one reason to not cede, and that is that I will actually improve my impact of harmony, my impact of variety by +4 this turn. And of course now the variety could get revealed. At the end I still decided to cede, and luckily the impact of variety is not revealed, instead an impact that I won't improve during this turn, which I was very happy to see. Impact of colonies being best for GerisNezus. I will build a professional sports. First of all, develop the satellites, gain a Nobel Prize, build an arena for 4 additional strength, costing 5 resources. I take the reserves, the urban growth, engineering genius, another urban growth, and I build 2 swordsmen to get out of corruption. Just load up on a lot of yellow cards. If I get hit by a war, I can now build a lot of units and some professional sports, and I did the calculations, and I'm completely safe here. So my overall decision of going for the more greedy lane maybe paid off. Maybe if Majondor went all in on strength, there could have been maybe a way how that all could get dangerous for me. I might not be able to get that many yellow cards, so it was a bit of a risk, but here it didn't backfire. I'm safe from a war. And this engineering genius is actually a bit of a hate draft. I don't need it for myself. I also first thought I rather want to increase my population, because next turn, if, as expected, I don't get hit by a war, then I have a lot of things to do, and being more civil action efficient and using one of my civil actions to increase my population already this turn could be the correct choice. But the thing is, the Engineering Genius, we can see it as at his next turn, will easily allow Majondor to declare war and finish the United Nations without being reliant on something like raid or plunder. So I wanted to deny that from him, as that could just result in a lot of additional points for him, and might also cost me a bit of points, as I'm tight on civil actions, but I was hoping, and I was also thinking about the next turn, of course, and seeing that I can still build up a nice internet, but depending on what impacts I want to prepare for exactly, I might potentially miss the civil action that I've now spent on using it to take the Engineering Genius. I draw the impact of government, which is a very neutral impact. I was now expecting to see a war declared against GerisNezus. That's indeed the case. Majondor goes for the military theory, builds some units, 2 rockets, a rifleman, takes the patriotism, and as you can see, if the Engineering Genius would be available for him, could just take it and then finish the United Nations at the next turn. Like this, with not having enough science for any tech, he just takes the patriotism. Goes up to 70 strength. GerisNezus seeds. The impact of balance is revealed. I was very happy to see that. I didn't seed that impact into the deck, but it gives me plus 12 against GerisNezus and plus 4 against Majondor. GerisNezus plays the reserves, increases his population, plays the reserves again, destroys 2 farms, so gets the population from the farms, but thanks to playing the reserves for food, he doesn't have any famine. He then destroys a theater, a mine, so he will put a lot of effort into defending, and he will just spend a lot of military actions on just going for 3 defensive army tactics. And we can see that he did not copy the positional army tactics, so revealing that a turn earlier maybe didn't make a big difference here. So maybe Majondor saw that, and GerisNezus goes up to 54 strength, so the war from Majondor will not be the biggest, luckily for me. Now it is my turn, and I could offer the international tourism. I thought GerisNezus might accept, because the chance that he can catch up to Majondor are bigger than the chance that he catch up to me, but I don't know if he would accept this pact or not, and I felt very good about my position. So I rather see the impact of government. I know the impact on top, and it's an impact that I won't improve this turn, the impact of variety, and the impact of government is actually plus 2 better for Majondor, but with the 3 culture for seeding, I just get 1 save point against Majondor, and so I decided to go for that 1 save point. Impact of variety is revealed, gives me plus 20, so I was able to make that impact quite big. It's also very fine for Majondor, but quite bad for GerisNezus. And I this turn can make the internet reasonably big. First of all, I will start by building 2 arenas, which also gives me 4 points for the internet, perhaps for some impacts, but also makes it that I'm at 60 strength, meaning that even only having 1 defense card allows me to defend against a potential aggression from Majondor. So again, I wanted to play it safe here, but I can build those 2 arenas and a multimedia, and then I can still finish the internet, and with 2 resources remaining, I will build a bronze mine, because the impact of harmony is in, that improves it by plus 4. I have knowledge about impact of agriculture and balance, so I don't need to build a farm and can just hope towards impact of industry, which with GerisNezus going for the oil, I thought it might be likely that this impact is in there. And then I have just the 5 resources left that I need to finish the internet, so I think taking this Engineering Genius was very much affordable. I mean, I was not able to play those reserves. With 4 more resources, I could have built another multimedia instead of a professional sports, but maybe I would not like to do this anyway. As I said, the professional sports makes me safe from aggression, and I finished the internet for a very fine amount, or very good amount, of 31 culture, so taking that despite the terrorism still paid off very heavily. Now it's Majondor's turn. He steals 21 culture from GerisNezus, goes for an aggression against GerisNezus, which comes through, but it's not a plunder or raid, meaning he won't be able to finish the United Nations. Builds another movie, reroutes some units, could be an indicator towards impact of industry, or he just, now with revealing the entrenchments tactic, wants to stay strongest while still being able to disband a unit in order to build a religion. Now it's GerisNezus' turn. He plays the revolutionary idea, can actually with Steve Jobs develop 1 more tech for 4 culture, and then disband some units to just build another mine, another oil mine, so Impact of Industry looks very likely, another theater and another bronze mine. And then before the final impacts, the culture scores, there are quite some gaps between the players, so it's unlikely that there will be any changes, but let's see what the final impacts have to say. There is indeed, as expected, the Impact of Industry that of course allows GerisNezus to catch up some points. There's an Impact of Wonders, which is also best for GerisNezus. Then there's the Impact of Happiness, that one is not good for GerisNezus, so the gap widens again. Majondor at the moment being 30 points behind me, or 34 if you take the Bill Gates bonus into account, so a big gap to overcome, and especially with the last two impacts actually being from me, first one being Impact of Harmony, giving me +4 against Majondor, +12 against GerisNezus, and the last impact being Impact of Government, giving me a -2 against Majondor, but yeah, with that I can still stay in the lead, and with the Bill Gates bonus I ended the game with 290 culture, and I'm able to win this game. So yeah, I am of course very happy to win this game, especially because if you remember me talking about the standings at the beginning of the video, winning this game makes it that I am actually through to the semi-finals of this year's World Championship, and I'm very happy about that achievement, very happy about how I played in the stage, how the games went for me. Certainly was also lucky in some of the games, because otherwise I would not be able to get such a good result going with already being through after or before the two-player games have finished. So I'm very happy about that. In this game, yeah, I got the early iron, Genghis Khan, plus Great Wall, plus Colossus allowed me to go for a big amount of strength. The Colossus draws again being very important in H2, giving me this raid, which I was able to pull off against GerisNezus. Maybe he should have taken Nobel. Don't know if he drew one defense card and maybe would have been able to defend with Nobel. Maybe it wouldn't have made a big difference, but maybe that could have potentially been a way how this game can turn into a different direction. But I got this raid of big setback for GerisNezus, who recovered nicely from it with the railroad, with the Suez Canal, with Bach. So he was still competitive going into H3, but had some big weaknesses. And I then just built up all of my economy. Nonetheless, my opponents were still completely in the game. But then the multimedia, the early popularization of science, getting the big internet, and also being able to transition into this defensive army tactic was extremely important. Maybe GerisNezus should have kept it in hand for another turn, because without that knowledge, I would have needed to play my turns a lot differently. I think then I need to grab the air forces, and even then maybe there's the risk that things get dangerous for me. So that tactic being revealed made a big difference for me and allowed me to go for a lot more greedy lines than I otherwise would have been able to. Maybe I shouldn't even have gone for those. At the end there was a bit of a gap, but as you saw, I at the end was safe from a war, was able to muster enough strength, or to threaten enough strength, and with that I at the end, with the big internet, was able to win this game. Alright, and we can now also take a look at the standings. One of the two-player games has actually already finished. But we will take a look at the standings nonetheless, because that was really not the most interesting two-player game. A lot of the game was played when it was already clear that I will go through. It's the game against GerisNezus, and he did not go through, so not as much thought was probably put into that game by both of us than compared to the other games, and it was not really a close game, so I will not show this game. The other two-player games against Majondor and SK are somewhat interesting. The one against Majondor started with an opening move that I have never done before in any Through the Ages game. So that I kind of need to cover. The one against SK we will have to see. But yeah, so there are at least one or two more two-player games that I will show from my games. But now let's take a look at the standings. Alright, so here we can see the games. You can see I was able to win the two-player game against GerisNezus, just running away with the culture and being able to defend myself. That was not the most exciting two-player game. And yeah, and the standings then look like this. I am now with also having won the two-player game at 28 points. So yeah, the games just have been going extremely well for me in this stage. Definitely had a bit of luck in order to get such strong results. And yeah, with that I will be able to make it to the semifinals, which I'm very excited for. And of course I will do my best to ideally also make it to the finals. And yeah, GerisNezus for him, the stage didn't go ideally. He tried it in, I think, almost all of the games with a very culture heavy, a bit greedy approach, which could have maybe worked. I'm not sure if it is his general play style or if he maybe thought against some higher rated opponents he will go for maybe a more greedy line. It didn't really work out well for him. I think in some games he also definitely was a bit unlucky. So the stage didn't go ideally for him, but he made it to stage 6, still quite a nice achievement, and can then give it another try in the next year's World Championship. Esk and Majondor both got a good amount of points in those 3 and 4 player games, but yeah, with me just being able to win that many, the gap is now too big. And yeah, so now let's see how the last 2 remaining 2-player games will be going. I will show 1 or 2 out of them, and then I also will, of course, show some of the 3-player games of the upper bracket group of this stage of the World Championship. So I hope you are looking forward to those games. Check out Peter's channel if you want to see the other 4-player games. Not online yet, the video, but soon will be. And yeah, with that, I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.